In this module, we'll explore the importance of standardizing processes for clinical and translational research studies. In earlier modules, we touched on the broad concept of developing effective data collection strategy. We discussed the significance of having standard operating procedures, or SOPs, available for reference by the entire research team, ensuring proper documentation and maintaining consistency throughout the study. However, those discussions were high level. Here, we'll take a closer look at what goes into the creation of SOPs and why they're essential for the success of your research. Why standard operating procedures matter. SOPs are written instructions designed to help you consistently perform specific tasks or processes in your clinical research. They are essential for maintaining uniformity and transparency across the study, ensuring that everyone involved follows the same processes and upholds the same standards. SOPs are especially important for clinical tools, such as electronic data collection platforms and other systems that are integral to managing research studies. Without proper documentation and standardized procedures, there's a higher risk of errors, miscommunication, and even compliance issues that could undermine the success of your research project. SOPs provide the structure and transparency necessary for effective study execution, while also helping to manage the logistical and operational complexities of clinical research. Defining the scope of your project. Before developing your SOPs, it's crucial to define the scope of your project clearly. What are the specific goals you want to achieve? What outcomes are most important to measure? Defining these aspects early on is essential for the creation of effective SOPs. For example, if your goal is to assess the efficacy of a new treatment, your SOPs will need to detail how data should be collected, monitored, and reported in a way that aligns with this objective. Alongside this, consider both the short-term and long-term goals of the study. What key milestones must be reached in the early stages? And what are the projected outcomes at the end of the study? Are the outcomes measurable? By addressing these fundamental questions, you can ensure that your SOPs align with the overall aims of the study and make it easier to assess progress. Identifying key personnel and their roles. It's also critical to identify the key personnel involved in your study and clarify their roles. This includes understanding each person's strengths and weaknesses and how to best align responsibilities. A well-designed team structure will help ensure that everyone can focus on tasks that play to their strengths. For example, a data manager may excel at ensuring data quality and compliance, while a research nurse may be best suited to handling patient interactions. Clear role definition should be reflected in the SOPs so that all team members understand their responsibilities from the start. Defining project metrics and timeline. To manage the study effectively, you need to establish project metrics. The operational indicators that will tell you whether the study is progressing as planned. This can include timelines for data collection, participant enrollment targets, or response rates for specific interventions. If these metrics are not met, the study may be at risk of delays, and the SOPs should include contingency plans to address such issues. Additionally, realistic timelines are a must. Overly ambitious timelines can lead to rushed work, increased errors, and burnout among staff. When designing SOPs, ensure that the timelines you set are achievable and consider any possible setbacks or delays. It's essential to remain focused on these priorities to ensure the study stays on track. The role of SOPs in enhancing compliance. SOPs enhance the compliance and consistency of clinical research by setting clear guidelines for how procedures should be conducted. With standardized documentation in place, new staff can be onboarded faster, and research operations will run more smoothly. The procedures are no longer reliant on institutional memory or ad hoc decisions. As a result, SOPs reduce confusion and errors, making it easier to maintain a consistent approach over the duration of the study. For example, let's say you're conducting a study that involves multiple clinical sites. If all sites follow the same set of SOPs for data collection, you can be confident that the data coming from each site is consistent and reliable, even though different researchers may be involved. Best practices for creating and maintaining SOPs. Now that we understand the importance of SOPs, let's review some best practices for creating them. Start with a standardized template. Don't reinvent the wheel. Many research institutions and organizations already have templates and frameworks for SOPs that you can adapt to your specific project. Starting with a template will help ensure you cover all necessary areas without missing important details. Define the workflow in detail. Every SOP should clearly outline the steps involved in a given process. Whether it's enrolling participants, collecting data, or managing samples, all steps should be carefully documented. For instance, if your research involves collecting biological samples, the SOP should detail every step from how to collect the sample, store it, transport it, and ultimately analyze it. Create SOPs that can be reused across multiple projects. Whenever possible, design your SOPs so they can apply to multiple projects. This approach will save time and effort, as you won't need to start from scratch for each new study. For example, if your lab uses a standardized process for handling patient consent forms, you can reuse that SOP across multiple studies with minimal adjustments. Avoid overspecification. It's important to strike a balance between being too specific and being too vague. Overly rigid SOPs may create unnecessary restrictions and make it harder to adapt to new circumstances, while overly vague SOPs can lead to confusion and inconsistency. For example, rather than specifying the exact wording for patient consent across all studies, you might define the core elements that must be included and leave some flexibility in the language. Sure, SOPs are standalone and clear. SOPs should be easy to read and understand. They should be self-explanatory documents that can be used for training new staff or reviewed by auditors. If someone new joins the study team, they should be able to read an SOP and fully understand what is expected without needing further explanation. Treat SOPs as living documents. SOPs are not static. As your study progresses, you may encounter new challenges or opportunities to improve processes. Ensure your SOPs are regularly reviewed and updated to reflect any changes in protocols or workflows. For example, if you implement a new data collection tool, your SOPs should be updated to incorporate this change. The importance of SOPs in external audits. SOPs are often required when you need to justify your study's methods to an external entity, such as a funding agency or regulatory body. For example, when submitting data to a regulatory authority or responding to an audit, SOPs will provide the necessary documentation to demonstrate that your research was conducted according to established protocols. This can help safeguard your research against compliance issues and regulatory scrutiny. Topics covered by SOPs. SOPs can cover a wide range of topics, including but not limited to administrative procedures, procedures for managing study budgets, timelines, and documentation, clinical procedures, guidelines for patient enrollment, treatment administration, and safety monitoring. Data management, processes for data collection, quality control, storage, and analysis. Laboratory procedures, instructions for handling and processing biological samples, conducting laboratory tests, and managing laboratory equipment. Pharmacy procedures, guidelines for handling investigational drugs, ensuring proper storage conditions, and monitoring adverse events. By covering all aspects of the study, SOPs help maintain consistency and ensure that all team members are aligned in their approach to conducting research. Conclusion and next steps. Creating and maintaining SOPs is a crucial component of managing clinical and translational research. Well-crafted SOPs ensure that your study is run consistently, transparently, and in compliance with regulatory standards. As you move forward with your research, remember that SOPs are living documents that need to be continually updated and refined. There are many resources available online that offer templates, examples, and guidance on developing SOPs. Research organizations, universities, and government agencies often publish their SOPs for public use, providing excellent examples for you to follow. Conducting a web search for clinical research SOP templates is a great starting point. By applying these principles, you will be able to create SOPs that not only meet compliance standards, but also contribute to the smooth and effective operation of your clinical study. This concludes the section on SOPs and standardizing processes for clinical research. We will now proceed to the next module, where we'll focus on the finer details of data management and study execution.